Hello everyone and welcome to a video here. This is Wesker and welcome to my channel. In my first video, I would like to talk about how I went from working at Amazon to now being in the Army, in the AGR program. I'm going to talk about why I chose to do this and how I did it. I was at Amazon for roughly 2.5 years. I actually tried to join the Army back in 2022, but for reasons that I'm not going to go over here, I ended up getting separated and I went on to apply to Amazon. It was rough. It was difficult. Those 2.5 years that I was at Amazon were not easy. I came across a lot of challenges, not just at work, but also at home. I was still living with my parents even after I finished college because I could not find a good paying job that would help me pay my own rent and pretty much live on my own without having to depend on my parents. And while they were not providing me with money for food and gas, I was still paying for those things myself. The only thing that I could not pay was my rent, or rent in general. Even though I graduated college, even though I have a 4-year degree, even though I worked multiple jobs, I still could not find a high paying job, or at least a good paying job. I wasn't asking for much. I simply wanted a job that would help me pay my own rent and not depend on anybody else. Unfortunately though, that never happened. And that's why I chose to join. Well, before I jump into that, I went back to the Army. I re-enlisted again after being separated from basic. I went back to the recruiting station on the spring of 24, and I went on to enlist again, and I ended up going to basic training in May. So I was there from May. I finished basic on July 14th, I believe. And I finished. I graduated basic. I graduated basic on July 14th. I chose my MOS was and still is 42 Alpha, which is Human Resources Specialist. And then I went on to Fort Jackson for AIT, which was 9 weeks long. Once I finished AIT, I went back to Amazon because I put on a military leave before I shipped out to basic. And so I came back to Amazon again. I was now officially in the military, in the Army Reserves. And before I shipped out to basic, I was preparing myself physically. So I put a lot of effort into physical fitness. I was running, rocking, going to the gym, doing a lot of hybrid training. And then I went to basic and I ended up being one of the best physically fit people at basic. I was one of the top runners at basic. I ended up going to BLC, basic leader course. I ended up going to Australia for my annual training, which I have a hat, which was, I went on to participate on the Taliban Sabre exercise of 2025 with other countries in Australia. So I went to Australia for my annual training and it went really well. Came back from Australia and I decided to join or sign up for the AGR program, Active Guard Reserves. AGR is what you would call a hidden gem in the military, or at least in the Army, where basically you can serve, you can become a full-time soldier, you can go from being a reservist, a part-time soldier, to a full-time soldier in the AGR program. So you get attached to a unit and you are part of the full-time staff in that unit. So I am the S1. I handle administrative operations. Pretty much I am the HR guy. So Some of you probably already know about HR. It is a little different in the military, or at least in my situation, it's a bit different than what you would see at like a typical company. When you think of HR, at least when you think of HR, you probably think of an old lady, this HR lady at Walmart or Lowe's, but it's different. It's I want to say it is somewhat different. It is not the same role. I'm still learning though. I'm still learning my role. I have been in the AGR program for roughly 4 months, but I'm still new to this. Pretty much after I finished basic in AIT, I came back on the winter of 24. I was at Amazon for another year, and then by February of like a year and a half, like a year and 2 months, or a year and 4 months roughly, I applied to the AGR program. I found a slot on the East Coast, and now I am here on the East Coast. So I drove from California all the way to the East Coast, which was a rough ride, but I made it. And I will say that so far, it has been better. It has been better than being at Amazon. And to be honest, I hated it. I didn't like working at Amazon. It was the worst experience that I had on any job. But at the time, that was the only job that I could find. I tried applying to other companies and I never got an answer. So Amazon was the only option that I had at the time. But thankfully, I left that environment. I want to say I left in decent terms. I'm not going to go into details as to what happened, but I will say that I would much rather be here than being back there at home. And yeah, that's pretty much it. The pay is good. It is much better. I'm getting paid almost twice of what I was making at Amazon. The job is different, even though it can be tough sometimes, especially on those BAs that we have once a month. It is still better. It is much better. Now I have my own apartment. I have my own vehicle. I'm paying for my stuff. I no longer have to depend on anybody. I have had some obstacles, some setbacks still, but in comparison to what I was experiencing at home and at Amazon, it is not as bad. It is not as bad. The situation at home and at Amazon were just very difficult. I feel like I got lucky. I did get lucky in being able to enter the AGR program. I don't know where I would be right now if I didn't enter the AGR program. I left back in February. I gotta tell you, man, things were getting rough at the end. They were getting rough at the end. I didn't know how I was gonna survive, but now I'm slowly recovering from that hit that I took. But anyways, pretty much it. Let me know your thoughts, and I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.